A large-scale Ukrainian drone attack has struck a large arms depot deep into Russian territory.
I thank all those involved. Such inspiring precision. Our special services.
Artillery shells as well as fuel tanks. The latest strike in Russia's Tver region comes after Ukraine sought permission from the US and UK.
At 5:17 a.m., a forest in eastern Ukraine went from eerily silent to deafening as over 300 rockets and shells were unleashed in less than 10 minutes. But the barrage wasn't random. It was Russia's attempt to tear open a corridor toward Lyman. What they didn't know was that Ukraine had already prepared a trap, combining electromagnetic warfare, drones, and long-range launchers. The question is, how do you break through when your sensors, your radars, and even your air defenses are being overwhelmed all at once? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button?
A large-scale Ukrainian drone attack has struck a large arms depot deep into Russian territory.
The security service, the defence intelligence, the special operations forces. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Russia believed its $3 billion ammunition depot near Kursk stood beyond reach. The guarded complex held enough stock to feed its artillery divisions for weeks, and commanders regarded it as a fortress. Inside were rows of 152mm shells stacked on wooden pallets, bundles of Grad rockets wrapped in tarpaulin, and sealed containers of S-300 missiles aligned in neat grids. It was more than storage. It was the primary lifeline for batteries spread across the Belgorod and Bryansk sectors.
In the Tver region, triggering a massive explosion.
I thank all those involved. Such inspiring precision. Our special services.
Without this depot, the pace of Russian strikes near the northern front would slow to a crawl, and Moscow knew it. That is why it built layers of protection around it, turning the site into one of the most heavily defended logistics hubs on Russian soil. Ringed by radar stations, guarded above by Su-35 fighters, and covered on the ground by BM-27 rocket batteries, the depot was supposed to repel anything approaching it. Patrols circled forest roads at all hours, while electronic sensors scanned for incoming drones or missiles. The message from Moscow's planners was simple. Nothing smaller than a squadron of NATO bombers could breach this shield. Yet as dawn approached, Ukraine prepared to show how those same layers could be twisted into a cage.
Russian authorities have ordered evacuations from the town of Robotic.
There is a significant outcome from last night on the territory of Russia, and this is the type of action that weakens the enemy.
At 5:17 a.m., the first wave began. Small FPV drones skimmed the edge of the forest like hunters flushing prey. Flying low and erratic, they forced Russian tracking radars to scatter their focus. Instead of a handful of targets, dozens appeared on their screens, each moving unpredictably. Operators scrambled to distinguish which were real threats and which were decoys.
The explosion was so powerful it was registered by earthquake sensors and the fireball picked up by satellites. Ukrainian president has thanked the Ukrainian military and lauded its long-range capabilities.
In the confusion, several radars locked onto birds or even tree branches stirred by the drone propellers. Every second of hesitation meant another gap in the surveillance blanket that was supposed to defend the ammunition mountain. As the drones kept multiplying, Ukrainian crews activated electronic warfare kits hidden deep in the tree line. With concentrated bursts of signal interference, they jammed Russian channels used for targeting and coordination. Suddenly, the data-linking radar operators with missile batteries flickered, froze, and in some cases vanished altogether. Pilots in Su-35 circling above received garbled updates.
At least 13 people were injured in the attack. A Ukrainian security source says the military depot has ballistic missiles to fire long-range missiles deep into Russian territory. Meanwhile, President Vladimir Putin has announced a program to bolster Russia's defence forces,
throwing off their intercept patterns. It was as if the air shield Russia advertised so proudly had gone blind in an instant. Meanwhile, armored motorbike flanking teams sliced through narrow woodland trails, exploiting the disruption. They moved in pairs, each bike carrying lightweight jammers and spotter drones to release along the way. From the Russian perspective, it looked like phantom forces racing across their rear positions. With command posts cut off from real-time readings, the sense of control inside the lines collapsed into uncertainty. Was this an infiltration raid or just more false signals?
Artillery shells as well as fuel tanks. The latest strike in Russia's Tver region comes after Ukraine sought permission from the US and UK. The town of Toropets lies 380 kilometres northwest of Russia's capital, Moscow.
By the time officers tried to sort it out, Ukraine had already stacked the battlefield in its favor. Then came the heavier strokes. Vila rockets launched in tandem with long-range loitering drones. Their timing was precise. Some struck the perimeter to keep defenders occupied, while others veered toward radar installations and mobile launchers. Each hit was magnified by the chaos. Russian crews, already drowning in a sea of ghost targets, reacted by firing indiscriminately. More than 300 rockets poured out in just 10 minutes, yet most streaked into empty forest, where shadows and interference had drawn their aim. For the defenders, it felt like a full-scale response. In reality, they were wasting precious firepower on ghosts. This was not coincidence. The pattern of decoys, jamming bursts, drone swarms, and sudden ground incursions revealed a doctrine Ukraine had been refining. The idea was simple: saturate defenses until they cannot distinguish friend from foe, force them to burn resources on false alarms, and once the shield cracks, strike the heart. That night, the principle was laid bare. The so-called impregnable depot was now exposed, its guardians tricked into shooting blind while Ukrainian operators maneuvered for the kill. The attack had implications beyond one ammunition dump. By turning advanced fighter escorts, layered rockets, and radars into liabilities, Ukraine showed that Russian air dominance was not absolute. A stronghold valued at billions could be softened and left vulnerable in a matter of hours. And with one depot reduced to a liability, the question spread wider across the theater. If Kursk can be breached like this, what other Russian stockpiles or airfields might already be waiting for the strike they cannot see coming? The destruction of the Kursk depot exposed how a fortress of weapons can crumble when locked inside outdated defenses. Concrete walls and radar umbrellas meant little against swarm tactics and jamming pulses that forced defenders to waste firepower on shadows instead of real threats. A stockpile once considered untouchable turned into proof that mobility and adaptability outweigh size or price tags. If a $3 billion arsenal guarded by jets and missiles can vanish overnight, which other sites might be next? Modern conflict now favors those who master sensors, signals, and speed, not those who simply store the most steel in one place.